Hi, this is Dana Green Remedios. Welcome to a Well Experience and welcome to this week's tips for staying healthy with nutrition. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist and Keisha Dixon has kindly invited me onto this page to share some tips with you to help you be at your best. After all, that's what we're all in agreement about, is that we want to be at our best and do our best in this world, don't we? So I'm here to share with you some of the tips about fat and when fat is not fat. So a lot of us have grown up and, gone through the 80s and 90s, and throughout the 90s, fat really got demonized. And we've grown up with this idea that we need to cut the fat out of our lives to reduce the fat on our bodies. So I'm going to explore that idea a little bit today. If you're someone that's been eating low-fat foods and you're struggling with your weight and that's not working for you, I'd like to have you stay on and listen a little bit further because I might have some interesting stuff for you. And if you're somebody that has wondered if, these seemingly strange, array of symptoms that you're having might be connected, or if you're getting used to just not feeling as good as you used to and you wonder why, that might come up in today's little talk as well. So the reason that these things might all be connected is that one of the major ways that fat might not be actually due to fat is that it's often due to the health or the lack of health and vibrancy of our liver. So the liver is actually this great organ. It's very large. It's incredibly important. And naturopathic physicians have often considered the liver as the primary organ of importance. Hi. And have you, heard this before, that the liver might be the most important organ that we have? Of course, they all work together and it's a holistic system. But the liver is really important. It does filter all of our blood. It does help us to manufacture hormones. And it, some of those are hunger or satiety hormones. But it also helps us to filter out toxins in our environment. And so, number one, your tired, toxic liver is one of the main ways that your fat may not be due to fat. It may be due to your tired, toxic liver. And second thing that might be causing you to gain weight that isn't strictly due to the fat in your diet is toxins. And so if your liver is tired and toxic and you're accumulating toxins, some of these toxins themselves are now being called obesogens. So one of the ones I brought up in another video was BPA. BPA, we know that it lines cans. We know that they've taken it out of, baby products because it's dangerous in plastics. But they've also replaced it with a just as yucky chemical. And BPA is still being used on other common everyday items, and we're still picking it up. So it's on the receipts that we get from the store. And when we touch the receipts, the BPA is in our body for another 5 or 6 hours. That is considered now to be an obesogen. There are several of these in our environment that we pick up, and they get stored in our bodies. Now, another thing that happens that might be affecting your ability to lose weight or gain weight, making you gain weight, that isn't related just to how much fat you're eating, is what kind of fat you have in your body and what proportions of those fats you have. So some people have more white fat, white adipose tissue, the typical what we think of as fat, and some people have more brown or bat fat, brown adipose tissue. The bat tissue is good fat that we want to have. It's actually thermogenic. It heats up, it burns the fat. And so we want to be able to burn thermogenically, kind of liquefy and bring these fat cells into our body to use them as fuel. Using fat as fuel is an incredible way to move the fat through your body, not allow it to just sit there and accumulate toxins. And it's a fabulous thing to do. So we have to mobilize our bat tissue, our brown adipose tissue, and we have to actually optimize the amount that we have. So we want more of this good brown fat and not as much of the white fat. So you might have gotten your body composition tested before and found out how much your body is fat, and that's really, a great step in the right direction for having knowledge about you and your body. So that's awesome. But you do want to know, do you have more brown adipose tissue or white adipose tissue? Do you have more of the fat burning fat? That's another thing to consider. So having low amounts of fat burning fat is also going to negatively impact your ability to burn fat or maintain your weight or even lose weight. So thanks for the like. Liver stressors are certainly a big deal. This is why clean eating, a clean diet, no matter what shape that takes for you, whether it be, Whole30, paleo, just not eating junk food as much, maybe going vegetarian, all these things are great ways to reduce the toxic load in our bodies. Hi again, how are you? If you got any questions or anything, comments, throw them down there. I'm happy to handle it live. So, caffeine's a common one that stresses our liver, and that we're really, a lot of us abuse a little bit. Like 2 cups of coffee might not seem like much, but if you take Midol or you have, chocolate, or you have other sources of caffeine in your life, then those do start to add up. So, looking at other sources of caffeine, even painkillers often have them, and those ones are not so good for your liver. All of them, acetaminophen, aspirin, Tylenol, it doesn't matter the name brand, none of them are really helping our livers out. And the more we learn about them, the worse they seem to be. So the NSAIDs are another class of drug that really do damage our liver, so we'd like to avoid those if at all possible. And if you don't know how to do that because you're in a lot of pain, then, sometimes just starting with an anti-inflammatory diet is a great place to start and can start to wean you away from those things, and that'll help you out. So, sugar is often the main culprit. We've talked about 3-4 different things that can make us accumulate fat that are not actually fat. Sugar, of course, I've talked about a lot, and carbohydrates, because if we have more starchy carbs that aren't contributing, nutrition to us, then we're not really getting much out of it other than, extra pounds. Water weight is often a big one. So here's another one, water weight. If you're holding water not where it should be, but in between your tissues and you're kind of waterlogged, you'll probably be, a larger pant size than you would otherwise. Yeah, well, caffeine can have some negative effects, to jump back to that. Caffeine the liver has 2 different phases of detoxification, and caffeine is one that your liver has to break down. So you're just taking up its energy and you're taking up its time. And sometimes enzymes are used to break up the toxins in our body, but our caffeine molecules also get excreted through the urinary tract. So that goes through our kidneys, and caffeine is actually one that affects women more than men, and it can affect a little bit our anxiety levels, and we don't know why, we're a little bit more anxious, and screws up our electrolytes a little bit, because what happens is caffeine makes us excrete magnesium, and we're already low in magnesium, most of us, and magnesium is our anti-stress mineral. It's the one that keeps us from feeling sore in the muscles. It's the one that relaxes our muscles. It's the one that helps us relax in so many ways. So so we don't want to be excreting more magnesium than we need to. I like to drink coffee, and I do supplement with magnesium just because I want to have my cup of coffee in the morning. I really like it, and I can go without it now, but I'm pretty prone to it. We're in Vancouver's very close to Seattle, the home of Starbucks. We're very attached to our coffee. So I do take magnesium every day, though, just to counteract the effects. So, on top of the things that we've talked about, the sugar, the toxins like caffeine, the, imbalance of fat to other fat, and all the, the tired, toxic liver that we might have, there's Other things that might be contributing to us having more fat than we should in our body, that's the kind of fats we eat. So trans fats will get stored as fat more than omega-3 fats. So the type of fat you're eating, it's not all equal. And like we have been saying for a few years now, a calorie is not a calorie. What you eat is incredibly important. And what you eat definitely determines whether you're going to store it or burn it. So, yeah, it's like with carbs, basically you burn them or wear them. And with fats, you want to make your intake more towards your essential ones, your omega-3, your omega-6, and fewer of certainly the trans fats. And saturated fats are a little bit more of a debatable one right now. I think with saturated fat, it's all about how sensitive you are to saturated fat. And that's really a genetic thing. So getting one of these genetic tests that tells you a little bit more, not just about your ancestry, but about your, sorry for the siren going by, tells you a little bit more about your makeup in terms of how you metabolize foods and, you know, your nutrition. That's fascinating, and it's really informative, and it can be really useful, because if you're someone who's sensitive to saturated fat, you may need to eat a little bit less of the animal fats, and you may need to eat less even of the plant-based ones like coconut oil. But for most people, it's trans fats that are the big harm. And that's because anytime you have something that your body considers toxic, it's going to store it where it's not going to damage you, or it's going to try and get rid of it. So if the liver can't get rid of it, can't break it down so it's easily excreted through your, you know, organs of elimination, your kidneys and your liver and you know, your intestines, then it's going to get stored because your body wants to package it in a way and cover it up so that it's not toxic to you anymore. So oftentimes these little things that we can't break down, like aspartame is one, we can't break it down, your liver will store it and coat it in other things that it has available to it, like cholesterol, and then pack it away and hide it and try and make sure that we're not exposed to it anymore. And aspartame's one, we can't break it down. It just gets tucked in our liver, and hopefully, you know, it doesn't cause us any more harm, this little molecule. But trans fats are one your body also sees as being rather toxic, and then they just get sort of stored in your body fat, and when they get broken down, they can make you feel kind of sick, but it's better to get them out than not get them out. So you want to burn them. Anyway, I want to keep the format of the video a little bit more clear to understand and not get too sidetracked, but we'll circle back to that one at the end. So inadequate fiber is another factor that's contributing to most people carrying pounds that they don't want to carry. And one of the reasons that fiber is so important is that fiber is one of these things that helps you to mobilize the junk that you don't want and take it out to the toilet, right? Take it out like trash. And when you have fiber, you're going to be able to grab onto stuff that's in your feces and take it out to the toilet. And this is really the best way to get it moving. Oh, I'm glad it's helpful. Make sure you get enough water with your fiber, because otherwise it's not going to help you move it out. It's really just going to be constipating, unfortunately. So you do want to make sure you're drinking lots of water every day. That's the best way to move toxins and waste out of the body, because most of the wastes are water soluble. But now I'm going to talk about how the liver does all this and how this comes together, because your liver goes through phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, toxins come into the liver, and it does a whole bunch of stuff to it using a lot of nutrition in your diet, like vitamins and minerals. It uses these things to take these super, super bad toxins and make them water soluble so that they can be dealt with in phase 2. So it changes all these toxins into water soluble toxins, and then they go on to phase 2. And then in phase 2, we have to do a bunch of stuff to the toxins using, again, vitamins, minerals, different nutrients, stuff that it has available to it, to detoxify them in phase 2 so they can be removed from the body, usually through our kidneys and via urine, and they're going to go right through, or, you know, in feces, and they're going to go right through out the body as water-soluble toxins. Now, what happens is that we often have the vitamins and minerals or other nutrients that we need to carry out phase 1. And then we sometimes fall short on the ones that we need to carry out phase 2. So we have an overload of stuff in phase 2. And the problem is that, believe it or not, the liver's doing this great job, but sometimes it makes things even more toxic when it's turning them into water-soluble toxins. So just because they're water-soluble doesn't mean they're less dangerous. Sometimes they're really, really potent toxins. And if it gets stuck and can't transform them in phase 2 into like even more, less noxious compounds, even more easily removed compounds, if it gets stuck there, we are really going to get ill effects from that. And so 2 things can happen. If it gets bogged down and we don't have the nutrients available to carry out that second phase, they will literally spill out of our liver. And then they start to irritate whatever's around us. In some people, it spills out and it's like right near our stomach, and so our stomach's really affected, and it starts to like come up into our throat, and we get like a hernia because it's like, it's really affected by it. Other people, it spills out into the lymph. It spills right out into the lymph system, and then you're maybe gonna get cellulite. You're gonna get, other problems where it comes up into your lymph here, like circulating through your body, and you get a sore throat. Maybe you break out, if it's in your lymph, it's coming out through your skin. Other people, it's gonna dump into the surrounding organs, and it's gonna make you feel like you've got maybe other kinds of issues going on in your surrounding organs that you don't even associate at all with being overly toxic, but that's exactly what's happening. So people get things like, the rashes, the headaches, they get indigestion, they get, all kinds of stuff going on. They don't know what it's linked to. It's all because of toxic overload. And so getting enough nutrients to carry out that second phase of detoxification is really important. Because if there's like just toxins floating around the body and the body wants to like protect you from them, where can it insulate those away from you the most? Like wherever you have fat. And so fat is often used to insulate us from toxins. And the minute we detoxify, the fat comes off. It really does. That's why a lot of the times if you burn it off, you over-exercise, you go on a crazy diet, the weight comes back on pretty easily because you haven't changed the fact that you're still toxic and your body still wants to protect you, and so it puts the fat back. But if you instead go on and cleanse, a lot of the time the weight doesn't come back on the same way. It comes maybe back a little bit, comes back slowly. It doesn't come back on the same way. And if you change your habits from there on in and you never eat as you did before, and you change your home cleaning products, and you change your beauty products, and they're not as toxic as they were before, you'll find that the weight stays off. So when fat is not fat, when it's your tired toxic liver, changing the amount of toxin exposure that you have in your life can drastically change your success with losing weight and keeping it off. So that's, if that's not exciting, I don't know what is, because really we're motivated by how we look, how we feel about how we look, all that stuff. I know people can be, so motivated by it, because I deal with people all the time that are anemic, and they've all the symptoms of anemia. They're tired, they can't concentrate, they're dragging themselves through the day, but the minute their hair falls out, which is another sign of anemia, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to do something about this. And then they go and treat their anemia. So yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. I get super fired up about this stuff. I mean, I used to feel like crud. I used to be one of these people that was exhausted. I used to have acne. I used to have bloating. I used to have gas. I used to have, mood swings. I used to have much more dark circles under my eyes. I barely have them now. I think I have thin skin, but I used to have a lot of stuff. I used to have hair falling out in clumps. I used to have, at one point I gained 40 pounds in like a month and a half. I used to have struggles. I eat whatever I want now, as much as I want. I don't count, calories. I don't even portion control. I just eat as much as I want to eat of the foods that I like. The trick is that I don't keep anything toxic in the house, and I do, I've removed a lot of the everyday crud from my life. The only typical exposures that I have are, you know, stuff that I can't really avoid. Like right now, the air quality is really, really bad. There's been a lot of forest fires in BC, and outside my window, it is smoky because there are fires in this province, and the smoke is blowing by. So there's some stuff you can't avoid, but the stuff you can avoid, it's great to avoid it. So if you would like some tips on how to, you know, quickly do a liver tune-up and get rid of some of these hidden causes of weight gain, I'm going to talk about that in my next video. So that's really exciting. For now, if you have hormone issues and that's contributing to weight gain, if you have any of these other issues that are contributing to weight gain that don't have to do with what you're eating, that will get covered in the next week. How to do a little tune-up and how to basically flush out the fat without necessarily going on any kind of calorie restrictive diet, but just cleaning up your act and using a few tips and tricks. I will also talk about certain tips and tricks to flush out cellulite and deal with that, because I think you know, it's still summer and we like to show off our legs if we want to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about that next video. Thanks so much for joining me today, and yeah, I will talk about tips and tricks next video, and if there are certain things that particularly bother you, I can address that in the next video, so let me know in the comments below. Have a great week, and I hope you're all feeling fine in the summertime. I will see you next week. Bye!